Welcome to another episode of Stardust and Golden. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some good reading material for sailors, and I'm going to give a few shout outs to some of the people who have been really instrumental in helping us get this boat together and other things. Anyways, lately a few people come to me and they say, hey, what's some good reading material? I'm just getting into boats, or I'm looking at buying a new sailboat. What should I look for in the boat? Do you have any good recommendations for any books on the subject? And I thought, well, you know what, that's a great idea. I'll put a little video together, a quick video, just to describe some of the best reading material that I've come across. There's tons out there. There's millions and millions of good books for sailors and people who are interested in sailing, voyaging, or just looking at new boats. It's an endless supply, it really is. And over the many, many years, I've collected many books. I would say my library is a lot smaller than it used to be, because over the years, the last 18 years, I haven't really been sailing at all. And I got rid of a lot of stuff, either loaned it out, sold it, or just lost it. So anyways, I got a few favorite picks. And I've got a good friend of mine right now who's looking at a boat, and it was mentioned, hey, what should we look for in some good reading material, just to get some knowledge on this? And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to point some out. So I'm going to start. I'm not going to go by categories. I'm just going to start. I put a little pile here. I'm going to just start by what comes up. Okay. The first one is, obviously, if you're already sailing, or you're thinking about sailing soon, I would suggest, first of all, getting yourself the nautical chart, number one. Okay, this gives you all the symbols, everything you need to know about all the little things that are on a chart, whether it's an electronic chart or a paper chart. I still use paper and electronic. A lot of people just use electronic. There's full of symbols on there. If you're new at sailing, this is something you need to have. Okay, if you've been sailing a while, you certainly don't need that book, but it's a great one to have on board for reference. If you do, like I do some celestial navigation along with other forms of navigation. I never rely on one form of navigation. Celestial I like to keep as a backup, so I have a section on board. And if you do that, you need sight reduction tables and a Nautical Almanac. And I would suggest, if you buy a Nautical Almanac, this is an old one, but buy the government printed one. There's Nautical Almanacs out there that aren't worth a hill of beans, and they should be nailed to the wall of an outhouse. This is a real Nautical Almanac printed by the U.S. government. This is the real one. This is the good one. Try to find one of these if you're going to use a paper version. These are available now on electronic versions, so you can get them on your computer. Just download it. But it's a lot of stuff to put on a computer. It starts taking up space. Medical handbook. Should always have any brand. I don't have one in particular that I really like. This is just the one I have. But any handbook on medical emergencies. If you're going to go offshore, something happens to you or somebody else on board, you're going to want to be able to do some sort of first aid on them or yourself. And remember, there's some things you can do and some things you cannot do legally out there on the water. That's a good reference to find out your limitations. For instance, if you have somebody gets wiped really hard on your boat, they cut their arm open, let's say. Well, you can bandage them up, but you can't suture them, not being a doctor, unless you're a legal doctor or a surgeon. But if that same accident was to happen to you, you can legally sew yourself back up, which you're going to want to do if it's really bad and deep. So be careful of how you use first aid on other people. Some things you can do and some things you can't. You can be liable if something really bad happens to that person. These are good reference books to find out what you're allowed to do and how to do it. Any book, this is not one in particular, but any book that deals with knots. It's good to know all your knots. This one here is from the Seamanship series. Colin Jarman is the author. It's a pretty good book. It's very in-depth. I believe it's only 84 pages, but it's a really good knot book. I like it. I've used it. Chapman's Communication Afloat. This is almost a must-have. A lot of people do not know how to communicate on a radio. And it's not only that, it teaches about amateur radio, SSB, VHF, flag signals, sound signals, and light signals. There's so many different signals out there, especially for emergencies. So this is a good book. And this will tell you how to communicate with things like that. A lot of people don't know how to communicate with the nautical, what they call the code flags. That's all in here. It's very good to have this on board, especially if you have a boat over 12 meters. Boating weather. This is a good one. Sally Townsend, Virginia Erickson. This was a very good book. Anything that deals with weather. I have several weather books, and this one I would put midway. It's very informative. I really enjoyed it. And it's good to know everything you can about weather. If you have 20 of these books, it's probably still not enough. Okay, weather is really something you want to watch. And one of my favorite authors in the world when it comes to sailing or sailboats is Richard Henderson. He has since passed, but he was one of the most knowledgeable guys I know about the sailing world. Any book written by this guy is gold. And this one's called Sailing in Windy Weather. If you're new to sailing or you're going to sail offshore and you're new at sailing offshore, this is the book to have. Okay, this is one of them. There's more. But Richard Henderson was very knowledgeable on all aspects of sailing. Mariner's Weather, William P. Crawford, another good one. I highly recommend this one. It's very good. A lot of diagrams in here and a lot of photographs. And I'm a visual type of person, so all the diagrams mean something to me. They're very useful to me. But this is probably this gives great details. It's not particularly about weather, but Voyaging Under Sail by Eric Hiscock. This is actually kind of a classic book. They're getting a little expensive to find online. I'm not sure if it's still in print. There's a lot of weather in here. And this guy's made many journeys around the world, so he's got knowledge on sailing and weather. It's a great book. And if you could find anything by, I'm trying to remember the name. He's a Frenchman by the name of Bernard. I believe it was Metissier, something like a French name. I couldn't pronounce it anyway. He had many books out. He sailed around the world many a times. He used to have a 39-foot steel hull ketch that made many passages, many notable passages. And he wrote many books. If you could find, I think most of them are out of print, but if you could find anything he's ever written online, it's worth its weight in gold. And he gives great detail on his weather tactics and his food tactics for surviving at sea, for months on end. One of the things I liked about his books is they were so detailed. And I like, real detailed stuff. And as far as rigging the boat, building the boat, sailing the boat, and heavy weather tactics, it's all in there. He puts all that in on his recordings of his journeys and writes that stuff down. This is probably one of the best all-around books I ever had for a boat. Okay, this was written by John Ruminaire. It's called The Annapolis Book of Seamanship. This book has got everything in it. It's a must-have if you're a new sailor. I would highly recommend this. This is a guy who sailed probably every part of the world that there is to sail. And he also is one of the survivors, if not the winner, of the 1979 Fastnet Force 10 storm. So this guy knows weather. And this whole book is about everything regarding boating and sailing. So there's weather, first aid, navigation, everything's in here. And it's really good. It's gold. Sailing dictionary, another good thing to have. Highly recommend this book, especially if you're brand new into sailing. It's basically like a dictionary covering almost every term to do with boats and boating in the sailing realm. And it's very, very good. It's very hard book, the hardbound version. If you're like me and you're sailing on a micro budget, and you have a smaller boat, this isn't really designed for the guys with the big boats, but Larry Brown's Sailing on a Micro Budget. I got this many, many years ago, and it was a great find. And it gives you an idea of how to enjoy sailing without spending millions of dollars. He took a lot of different routes to make sailing very enjoyable, yet not painful to his wallet. And it's a good book to find. If you find this, it's a good read, even if you're sailing a big boat. This is just something to have. It's really good. Boat Owner's Illustrated Handbook of Wiring. Highly recommended. One of my favorites. And it's very intricate. A lot of mathematics in here, a lot of different scales, everything to do with electricity, wiring, capacities, and what you need on your boat for different operations. Whether it's running a high output hot water tank or your lighting system, whatever it is, it's in this book. Even engine. So it's really great. And it goes through all kinds of different, from small boat to mega yacht. This book is absolutely gold. Okay. Good boat keeping. This was a nice book. This was a fun book. Just a lot of little handy stuff to build and use on your boat to keep it tidy, neat, clean. Different methods for keeping things clean. Great book. Highly recommend it. This one is from Zora and David Aiken. Very good read. Really enjoyed that one. Now, these are my top finds I'm going to give you now. These are some of the books that I really wouldn't want to live without. Some of them I have read so many times. They're actually worn out. They're kind of pasted together. So we have Heavy Weather Sailing by Adler Coles. This is, if you can find one of these, buy it. Whatever the price tag, it's worth it. Okay, this one's well worn out. Very old book. But it doesn't have hardly any diagrams, pictures, or anything in it. But it's well written. This has got the stuff if you're going to sail in heavy weather, or you expect to be in heavy weather. Even though right now I'm sailing in Lake Erie, I read all this stuff with the heavy weather and the extreme survival situations, because you never know what's going to happen to you out there. You could be in a small lake or out in the middle of the Pacific or the Southern Indian Ocean. Anything can happen on a sailboat at any time, so always be prepared. The prepared mind is always going to fare better out there. This is my favorite #1 book of all time. I highly suggest this to anybody that's going to buy a sailboat, is just getting into sailing. If you've been sailing 20, 30 years, this is the book to own. The cover's long gone, but this is from Richard Henderson, and it's called Sea Sense. And this book covers it all, as far as the boats, offshore sailing boats, nearshore sailing boats, voyaging, and he gives a lot of details on weather, safety at sea, a lot of safety at sea, and a lot on boat design. And good design, and he also gives a lot of examples of bad design. There's a lot of stuff in here on naval architecture. And if you're really into the design of boats, you're really going to take a boat offshore, and you're not sure if it's capable of that, Sea Sense is the book. Okay, because this will tell you exactly what the flaws and the shortcomings are of some boats that you should not take offshore. I mean, there's a lot of boats on the market out there that you really wouldn't want to take out of the local pond. Okay, and yet people try to sail them, they get injured, or worse, and sometimes it's strictly on the boat, its design and its construction. Was the boat constructed under proper molding techniques and fitting techniques? Were the windows made out of plastic, or were they solid glass? There's a lot of things that go into boats for offshore use that you really want to have. A window that will take 2 tons of force, when a wave hits it. It's very important. You don't want a piece of thin plexiglass, being the only thing between you and sinking to the bottom. So boat design is very important if you're brand new into this, and that book will really help you get through and save you a lot of aggravation out there where the weather can get really bad. Okay, so that is one of my favorites. This is a good one too. This is a really old book called I'm not even sure, the Patrick Royce, and it's called Sailing Illustrated by Patrick M. Royce. This is an old version. It's totally worn out. Some of the pages aren't even legible anymore. If you find one of these online, it's gold. And I'll tell you, it's full of all kinds of diagrams, almost every other page, from knots to sailing techniques, heavy weather, emergencies, and sea survival. Another thing that you want to read the Bernard Tessier's books about, because he gives exact detail. Although his books are about his voyaging, and they're kind of like autobiographies, he gives great detail in what's going on and how he survived and how he survived some of the storms he was in and what tactics he used. This is kind of the same thing. It's a lot of tried and tested things for real bad situations, no matter what it is, and just having fun too. So don't let me scare you that sailing is something but tragedy. But this book, absolutely, Sailing Illustrated. I don't know what year this was produced, but it has to be from the 1950s. Highly recommend that one. That's on my top list. And if you're new at boating, one of the most important things that have been overlooked for a long time lately is because we really don't have a federal established licensing for boating. Now, if I go and buy an aircraft, I'm not allowed to take that aircraft up into the air and fly it through the skies in any form I feel that I have the rights to without obtaining a license. To obtain that license, I have to take flight training. So otherwise, the skies become full of people coming down on our houses, okay? Right now, especially in the Great Lakes region, we got boaters everywhere that have never, they just turn the key and go. They've never been on a boat in their lives. All of a sudden, they got a big check. Let's buy a boat. Let's have fun. They turn the key and full throttle they go. The problem is that somebody always gets hurt, okay? So I'm not saying we need to license everybody across the board, but we do need to give some kind of training to everybody. And whether there's a fee on that or it's free, I don't really care. But we're starting to lose track of good boating etiquette. This book will help the new guy, okay? So if you're brand new at boating, whether you're driving a piloting a powerboat or piloting a sailboat, this is the thing to have. It's called Boating Etiquette. This one is by Queen Hooper Foster, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, please leave something in the comments. But it's from Chapman's Nautical Guides. They have a whole series of these small books like this. And this one's Boating Etiquette. Very important to have this, especially if you're sailing into some high class area. You sail into Newport at the yacht club at Newport, Rhode Island, and you got laundry hanging off your boat, and you got fenders hanging over the side. That looks really bad, and they're not going to give you much time. So that's something you might want to look into. Here's another Richard Henderson, Rigs and Rigging. Must have on a sailboat. If you don't know anything about rigging and you can't afford to hire a guy to come out at $200 an hour to do your rigging for you, this is a good thing to have. Rigs and Rigging, Richard Henderson. It covers basically every aspect of your rig, your sails, your running rigging, standing rigging, everything. A little bit on the design too. So it's a really good read. If you can find that, I highly recommend. This one is also in my top 10. Here's one that I believe is out of print. And if you think about building a self-steering unit or using a self-steering unit, this is a great book. I built a Vane out of this once, just a cheap Vane to steer the tiller on a small 20-foot sailboat. It's a great book. Bill Belcher. It's called Wind Vane Self-Steering. If you could find a copy of this, they're quite expensive, even on eBay right now. But if you find a copy and you really want to build your own wind vane, it's a good way to go. I really enjoyed that book. I've had that for probably 30, 40 years, and I got a lot out of it. And last but not least, this is the one of the best mechanical and electrical manuals on the market by far. I have not found anything that even compares to this one. This is the Boat Owner's Mechanical and Electrical Manual. Okay, this guy is probably one of the finest technical writers I've ever run across. Now last I heard, he was living on his sailboat. He just does these books for a living. And he does a lot of lab testing. A lot of his stuff is backed up with tests that he runs himself, or gets technical information from labs that have done the types of testing that he does. It's a Nigel Calder, and it's absolute gold. If you can find one of these, highly recommend it. This is one of my top 10 faves. I wouldn't sail without this one, but I love technical books, technical manuals, and anything that deals with that. And that book gives you everything from the type of wires you should use, color codes. It gives you all the galvanic scales. It shows you everything you need to know about any electrical system on a boat and how to be safe. Because safety is really important when you're dealing with electricity and water, especially salt water. You don't want to ever jump in and swim off your boat near a dock and find out that there's a bad ground, and all of a sudden you become part of that 110 volt ground. It's best to have a little information. That book can help you along the way. Okay, now's the time we're going to give a little shout out to a few of the people that helped us out. And again, if you're just joining us, Stacy and Dubious Daisy here and I, it's only been about 9 months we've had the boat. Yeah,
something like
9 or 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, a lot of people were responsible for helping us get this thing all together. I mean, it was amazing that we bought this boat sitting 25 years in a parking lot abandoned. And within two and a half months, we had it sailing and in the water. But we didn't do it ourselves. Roger, Stacy, and I had some help. And we're gonna give a shout out to some of those people because they really have it coming, if you will. So we want to first start with some of the people we met up in the area, up in the marina where we had the boat. So we had a great couple by the name of Mike and Mary Gray. They sail a boat called the Living the Dream out of Sandusky, Ohio. They were really instrumental. They were one of the first people we met at the new marina, and they were wonderful. They helped us with some hardware. They loaned us some tools we needed for rigging and setting up the rig. And we weren't able to bring a whole truckload of tools to our boat 60 miles away, so they were right there to help us out, and we really got a lot from them. They were really helpful to us. And who did you want to shout out to, Stacy?
Well, I am going to jump to our friend Sherry, who is one of the winch wenches along with me. We have learned how to rebuild winches and work on the deck and all sorts of odd jobs, and she's just been so amazing and supportive and willing to drive out and do the hard work. So thank you, Sherry.
Yes, thanks, Sherry. You've been really awesome to us, and we really appreciate it. Next, we got to give a shout out to there was a guy we met when we first got there, and it took a minute to warm up to him, and him to warm up to us, I think. But he's been absolutely a wonderful guy. His name is Bruce Anderson. He sails the SV, I believe it's Island Dancer. It's a beautiful boat that he has, a 65-foot catch. It's just a gorgeous boat, full of knowledge, full of resources. Excellent guy, and he really helped us out. Bruce, if you're watching this, thank you so much for all your help and your advice. It's been really good.
I am gonna jump to Marcia and Jeff Kane, who'd come out. They summer in Sandusky, so we get to see them. Marcia and I really bonded, and it's nice to get to know other people and make this not just about work, but also be able to socialize. So thanks for joining us for trivia night and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, wonderful characters. We've really been, one of the biggest blessings of this boat was the people we met on the road. And Jeff and Marcia were certainly two characters that we really enjoyed having. We had a lot of fun with them. They've just been wonderful people. I can't say enough. I got to give a shout out to a guy that's been doing rigging work for me and helping me out for well over 30 years. When I first got back into boating in the early 90s, it must have been like 1990 or 91. I ran into this guy, and he helped me get some stuff straightened out on my boat, and he's just a wonderful guy, a great guy to know. And if you're ever in Cleveland, I highly recommend hunting him down. If you need any rigging work, sails, he does canvas, and he can do it all. He really can. Reasonable. He works for Ullman Sales in Cleveland, Ohio. He also does, I think he does a little work on his own. I'm not really sure. But his name is Dan Elliott. If you're ever in Cleveland and you need a rigger, this is the guy to hunt down and find. I mean, he's really good. And I've been just amazed, at his wealth of knowledge and the things that he can do.
My turn. I'm going to shout out to Marshall Weaver.
Marshall,
So,
great guy.
Another
Yes.
friend of ours who these people all grew up together in Olmsted Falls, and so we reconnected. And Marshall is also summering in Sandusky, and joins us for breakfast on the weekends, and is just knowledgeable and helpful, and we really appreciate his company.
And he's our guardian of the boat. He kind of
Yes.
watches the boat for us because we live a few miles away, so it's an hour drive for us. And he's the guy that, we give keys to and say, hey, watch her for us. And if you need to get on her, help her out, tie her up, have lunch on her, we don't care. Take her for a sail, So, yeah, there's, I got a shout out to another couple that we met up there that were just really supportive. And when we first put the boat in the water, which was a very, very nervous day for me, because there was so much that could go wrong on a boat that sat for so many years. And they were just cheery, and they brought a lot of levity to the situation and just made it fun. And so I want to shout out to Ray A. and Kathy Y. From the SB, I believe it was called the Wind Spirit, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it was Wind Spirit. Great couple, love them dearly, and I hope I got the name of their boat right. If not, call me up and let me know, and I'll fix this. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to shout out to Carolyn and the whole crew at the Better Half Restaurant. They've got a great place in Sandusky, and they had this wonderful little pop-up restaurant right at our marina, and so we didn't have to do much cooking, and we just loved the camaraderie, and just it's like a family there.
They
So,
provided sort of the meeting house for us. That was sort
Yes.
of like our little mini yacht club. We would all just go there to congregate, and if we weren't on the boat, working on the boat or sailing the boat, we were there, and they were just friendly. They were really friendly. They have great entertainment, and they had a lot of festivities, parties, and
yes,
we had the
Bloody Mary Bar on Sunday mornings.
Yeah. So if you're ever in Sandusky, you got to look up the Better Half Restaurant. It's a must. I mean, it's a place you don't want to miss. I got to go with. I want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine from the Cleveland area who's really helped me out with this endeavor. That was Jeff Ritter, with the SV Abbey. He sails out of Cleveland, Ohio, and our friend Marion from a boat that's just called The Boat. And Marion's just been a good pal. She sailed with us once or twice. I can't remember now, but yeah. Wonderful person. She's been very supportive and helpful of us too. And when I'm on that subject, I want to go to my friend Nicole from Set. I've not met Nicole personally, but I ran across Nicole on a YouTube channel, and that's why I started this. She had one called Saddles and Sails. I highly suggest you look it up. It's a fun site. She has a sister boat to ours called Bob, which is, I love it. Just Bob. It's so simple. But they've been doing a lot of work to Bob. We've been following it, and we kind of binge watch her stuff because she's doing a lot of the same stuff that we are either doing now or going to be in the future doing. So it's been a really helpful series, and she's just been very, so I call her up for advice on cameras. I call her up for advice on editing software and boat stuff. I mean, I call her up for everything. So she's been just absolutely wonderful. So we got a shout out to her. So, and that was YouTube Saddles and Sails. And if you like YouTube's videos on boats, or sailing, find her. You'll like it.
I'd like to shout out to the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Virginia, and the rest of the crew who are teaching the sailing safety class, which I'm taking now, and so is Roger. When you have a partner who loves to watch movies based on true events and they happen to be sailing disasters, it makes me a little nervous. So I am grateful to have the opportunity to learn about safety and how to handle the boat, what things are called, and feel a little more comfortable getting out there and having a sense of what I'm doing. So thank you.
There are a few true stories of disaster out there, and I didn't mention them in the book section in the beginning of this video. I read a lot of books when I was really young on some disasters at sea, and I have to highly recommend a few of them because of the details that are in them for sea survival. Storm tactics and sea survival. One of them is Richard Callahan's book called Adrift. Really good book. There was a movie made about it, but I'm not sure the title of the movie.
I think it was the same. We just saw that.
No, that was a different Adrift.
Okay,
There's an Adrift movie. That is a true story also about a woman and her fiance who lost their boat in the Pacific Ocean during a hurricane. And she survived for 41 days out at sea on this boat alone and ended up drifting into Hawaii. And she was very fortunate that she survived it. The boat was a mess. It's a true story. Her book is called Red Sky in the Morning. And I can't remember her name. I apologize. But it was a great story. There wasn't a lot of, it was a great entertainment. I loved the movie, but there wasn't a lot of detail. I'm in for more detail. So the book, I would highly recommend the book over the movie. The same with any of them. Survive the Savage Sea was a great book, a lot of detail. But the movie, it was more entertainment. And, you know, that's Hollywood. But Survive the Savage Sea is a true story about the 1972 wreck of the Robertson family. They sold their farm in England. They bought a big sailboat, a schooner, I believe, and they spent, I think it was 37 days in a raft or a dinghy. The raft didn't last very long. But that's some of the things you get out of those movies. You know, which brands of rafts survived a really long time. 76 days Callahan spent at sea, and his raft survived it, you know, to a point. I mean, it was very beat up. On the other hand, the Robertsons in 1972, their raft only lasted, I think, 9 days before they had to go to the dinghy, the whole family. So those are things to keep track of and keep in mind, just in case the emergency ever happens to you. You know, you can shop for this type of product or that type of product. And they give you ideas on what to eat and what not to eat at sea and there's all kinds of good things. But yeah, I scared her a little bit with that movie because she walked in and it's just these giant waves. The boat's going end over end, you know, it's doing a pitch pole. It's losing its mast. The masts are punching holes in the hull. And that's when she walked in. So she was like, I don't think we want to go across the ocean. Please, you know, let's just sail on the Great Lakes. So
Yes.
We'll talk her into that a little later on. But that's about.
Oh, we have one
yes.
more really important shout out.
Oh, yes. This is probably
our dear friend Bob Salmon.
Yes. Bob Salmon is the guy who really helped me, well, in a lot of areas besides this, but he really helped me decide to do this with a video. He gives me information, and he made our first video. If you watch it, Season 1, Episode 1, that's Bob's handiwork. He did all that because I have no clue on how to do anything with cameras and videos and editing. If you've seen the last 4 videos, you'll know that. So Bob is the guy who's saving us, and he's going to help us do more videos in the near future. And if you get a chance, visit his site because he's got some awesome music. He's a musician, and I think he's on SoundCloud, if I'm not mistaken. SoundCloud, Bob Salmon. He's got wonderful, absolutely gorgeous music. And you can, his site is www.bobsalmon.com, and I believe that's SAMMON. And it's something you might want to check out. He's a great guy, and if you're ever in Cleveland or if you're anywhere, you need film work done, this is the guy to see. He's really good at editing and putting stuff together, and he does it quick. You know,
he's done the production work for the choir that I manage, and when we were doing things virtually, he made it easy.
Mm.
So I have a lot of gratitude for Bob.
Yeah, he's just one great guy, period. Yeah. So, anyways, I think we went through our little list here that
did.
this is our first list. We're probably going to give a lot of shout outs at the end of our videos from now on because we have a lot of people, again, who have paid forward and helped us out. So we're going to pay it forward a little bit by, at least shouting out their names, if not doing something in honor of them. So we've had way too many people help us with this project to do a shout out on one video. So we're going to kind of spread it out over the long term. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you very soon, and we'll probably have a video out, I don't know, a couple weeks maybe. If not, maybe next week. All right.
All right.
Until then.
Good night, all.